Hello, I'm Parker. This is the product of about 6 months of labor. This is one of my this is a Gemedet set based on the description in the book of Tiana of the game of Gemedet. Here, I'll set it up. Nine by 9 by 9 grid. The object to get 6 of your color in a row. Row. Here, the set has blue and red marbles. I first got the inspiration to make this when I saw an image online. When I joined Tumblr after the first after my first Mysterium last year. I got some pictures. I'll just leave that. This I don't recall who had made this piece of art here, but when I saw that, I knew I wanted to make something, and this looked like something that I could actually make something like that. I got to designing it. Always the funnest part of any of these projects. Later I also saw that someone had made something like that out of glass, but I wanted to make the grid in a way that would make seeing all of the different kinds directions and lines a bit clearer by making it clear, and to make it a proper cube instead of stretched vertically. Here's some shots of, let me see if I can get this fuller screen. There we go. And this is my earliest layout of it, of the grid itself. Here is just a second. Slideshow. How do you exit? Exit. I can't get it to stop. And earlier versions of it, including the one where I got the spelling wrong. The spelling wrong. So many revisions have happened, but the general layout has remained the same. Here's the ultimate version of it, the one that was actually produced. Started most appropriately with making the original grid. I used it was just a scrap of 1/8 inch clear acrylic that was left over from an earlier job, the shop that I work at, and it ended up making the perfect grid. The clarity was as good as I could have imagined, and however, the good initial fortune would come back to bite me later, which I'll come to that eventually. The tweezers or the Rodanti, I think that's how it's pronounced, are cooking utensils. They cooking utensils. They have little silicone tips to that won't melt. But they ended up being the perfect thing for this because with the rubber tips, they can pick up the marbles easily, and they're big enough to have at least 6 inches of reach to get into that grid. This is the grid after I bought enough marbles to fill it entirely. It's kind of trippy. That's the first game I played on the grid with my friend Kai. He is undefeated in that game. But this is one of the first cuts of for the early prototype, which I cut out of melamine on particle board. This is the engraving, which ended up being one of the simplest parts of this whole project, oddly enough. And these early pieces ended up getting recut several times before I found a configuration that I liked. Eventually picked and obtained all the hardware that's going to go into these 4 pieces. It is strange, oddly enough, not quite the majority of the weight. The first prototype went together too easily for my own good, because I did not notice all of the problems in the design that I would later find with the finished finished products. These boxes, the joints, the corners are being. I tried to use dowels to align the corners. That ended up causing more problems than it helped. Here's all the MDF parts and the marble trays. The painting process, that's that's a presentation. That's a whole that's a whole presentation all on its own. I'm not going to go in too much into that. But all the interior surface. It started by getting all of the interior surfaces properly painted because there's lots of little slots and such that's difficult for spray paint to get into consistently. Then came the assembly, and with each one doing each box one at a time, I kept finding, little areas where I was left wanting to have, better control and such. Eventually, this last box, it just became a cocoon of clamps. And clamps. And a lot of the reasons for that is that the dowels themselves, they did the opposite of what I wanted them to do. They kept them firmly out of alignment. They kept them in an alignment, just not the right one. And eventually, and so the assembly went okay. I should not have used staples to hold it together because there were a few strays. And just bottom line, the lesson here is that redundancy is not always a good thing. And so with the painting process, exterior painting process, got this little plug to keep the already painted interior safe. Designed this rack to hold the boxes. As the paint that I used is this hammered. It's a paint that gives it a hammered look. The thing is, if I was to paint the entire exterior just in one go and let it dry, the paint on the sides will just dribble down and just form a bead at the edge. And so to get each of these, so to get the look right, I had to paint each side one at a time and let it dry for a day before rotating them on the rack and painting the next. And the lid for the final step in this whole painting thing. And so, well, here's the start. Well, not quite the start of making the rest of the grids. I was starting to get really discouraged when I could not find the exact material that I used for all of the for the first grid. Grid. It wasn't commonly carried at the industrial suppliers that I'd usually be going to. I did eventually find something that was apparently the right stuff. At Home Depot. However, the first thing I noticed is that the clear film that these sheets of plexiglass or any other acrylic have that peels off easily is not the kind of surface you want if you want to actually hold it down to the surface of the router bed. It comes off too easily because The original sheet has a paper backer that is designed for you to be able to spray glue on it, glue it down, and then once it's all done, pull it up and then peel it off. The adhesive between the paper and the acrylic is stronger than the adhesion between the clear plastic and the acrylic. And so I ended up finding a solution that worked better than I anticipated. I ended up just peeling off the acrylic and just lining the entire surface in masking tape. And then spraying the glue on that. And that definitely worked better than the first sheet did. Some of the pieces even moved just as they were finished being cut. And at least one of the boxes has pieces that reflect that. And the process of cutting like the remaining 3 grids took about 6 hours of waiting for this machine. The material's quite hard, and the bit that is being used to cut is only an 1/8 inch in diameter. So got to take it slow. Slow. And was only much. It was later after that I found another problem with it. After I got the boxes, paintings finished, got all the hardware installed, there's the hinge and the other pieces, a rail that I set in there to offset the hinge so that it could be stood up on its spine on the back of the box. In installing screwing anything into the edge of the MDF material, you have to have it securely clamped, or else it'll just split it. And the rest of the hardware, fortunately, didn't give me any problems at all. That's a little jig I made to center the turntable in the holes, to keep it holes so that the foot of the turntable would not risk scraping the edge of the box. Box corners, lots of little screws, took forever. Arm hurt like hell afterwards. So the box was assembled. That's when I found where the last problem with the grids was. The material that I got at Home Depot said that it was 0.118 inches thick, which is exactly the thickness I was going for. However, I mic'd it and it turned out to be 0.106 inches thick, which for most cases would not really be a problem. Except for this specific case, because these joints, all the notches that are fitting the grid together, are exactly 1/8 of an inch wide. That's the nearest I could make them, because the bit is 1/8 of an inch in diameter. And so the verticals and the horizontals were loose in them, and resulting in a grid that was so wobbly and flimsy, I could not accept that. Fortunately, this is a piece of the original of the original sheet that the original grid was cut from, and there was exactly enough left to recut all 24 of the vertical pieces from it. And that made the grids serviceable. However, it also resulted in another issue with that, in that the boxes were cut specifically to fit 9 layers of these acrylic sheets in it, and with them being that much thinner, there was an 1/8 inch of empty space left in there, which meant that if the sheets end up falling against the ceiling, the vertical pieces that are in the slots in the bottom would come loose and just be free to rattle around in there. So I ended up finding another sheet of material and gluing that and attaching that to the inside of the lids, and to the inside of the lids, and then they were done. It's underwhelming to look at, but it was an overwhelming experience for me. It just to see them finished. So it's they were finished literally days before I left. So like literally just after I got finished getting all the hardware on, it was time to pack them up and get ready. There's this one packed up in a thing I just got in the mail, and that's and that pretty much brings us to today. And the project, as far as the project goes on the whole, I thought no matter how much time you think you need for something, I've consistently been underestimating it. Underestimating it. It's underestimating it. Like, even I was originally intending to ship these here, but then ship these here. Then when I found out how much that would cost, yeah, I'd rather carry them, carry all of them. They're about 23 pounds each. Here, I'll pass this around. Here, check this out. So this whole project, I think I'm going to be doing this again. I'm definitely not going to be doing it the same way. This is like, for however sturdy and for however nice and however sturdy these boxes are, it is just, it's really not. I found that it's not worth it's not worth nor economically feasible to be making more like this. It is more like this, but I can say that they are sturdy. No empty, basically no empty space in there. I can't makes when they're fully packed, they are pretty much incapable of being crushed. And crushed. The weak point is the Lazy Susan turntable. Oh yeah, incidentally. There's a turntable in the bottom of them that allows them to turn freely. Is the weakest point, and that's rated for 330 pounds. And later, I hope to actually make a smaller, lighter version that is just packaged like a normal board game in a cardboard box. But until I can figure out optimal. Like ideal material, the ideal material for making this grid, right? Rather, one that is more easily obtainable. I'll probably still be contemplating that. But anyway, yes, that is my Gemedet game. Any questions?
Hello. How much are you willing to charge for one of these, or are they not for sale?
I could not bring myself to actually charge anyone for them, because if I was to actually charge a fair price, it would probably end up almost $1,000, just because of the amount of time. The hardware alone for all 4 of these is almost $500.
Wow.
Like I said, I intend to actually make a cheaper version, although even then I don't know if I'd be able to make it that economical, that marketable. Anything else?
I want to ask you specifically about the marbles.
Oh, yes.
And did you choose the colors red and blue on purpose?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes, yes. In fact, I found a site online where I could get in bulk just about any color of marble, just about any solid color of marble, and it ended up being I ended up narrowing it down to these. Like, I was thinking of doing the red and green like was described in the book, but I heard that red-green color blindness is a somewhat common form of color blindness, so I decided to go with red and blue. I was thinking of black and white, but friend Kai pointed out a practical flaw in that the grid being three-dimensional like this makes the background means that you can't actually choose what the background is. And the problem with black and white is people in black shirts and rooms with white walls. So having the monochromatic, the maximum contrast, monochromatic black and white might not be the best idea. So I went with red and blue because the contrast is good, and also they just stylistically they're two colors that just don't really go well together. Like together, it's like you have red and blue. It seems, at least in our culture, it is very clear. It's very clearly adversarial. Anyone else?
It's time for one more question.
One more question?
We have no questions. Oh wait, no. Here we go.
Oh.
Here's one. Look at that. All right. So we do have one from the internet. Did you consider laser cutting the acrylic instead of machining it?
No, because I don't have a laser cutter. This is everything here is literally all the choices that I made were the first priority was what can I actually do? What do I know I can do? Because none of this was done. I didn't. There's only a single piece, only one piece in all of these did I actually have professionally done by someone else, and that is cutting the rails. That is cutting the rails, which they were laser cutting the rails that I used to offset the hinge so that these things can be set up on their backs. And but yeah, basically, my tool in work is all the planning was based around around what I knew how to do with my CNC router that I use at work. And yeah, that's this is my tool. And that's pretty much the majority of my experience. And it certainly didn't fail me on this project. It was a heck of a learning experience, and amongst the lessons are that some of them I already knew, like I have no reason to trust paint for any reason, and redundancy is not always good, and always give yourself more time than you could, more time than you think you need, and that's it.